Hello everybody, this is Jason Heires, this is My Essential Albums, and today I'm going to be talking about an album by the band that's probably my personal favorite band, and an album that I would say is the greatest live album of all time, and that's The Who. The album's live at Leeds. Here's the album cover. So this album has has a number of incarnations. The original album only had not that many songs on it. It had let's see here, Young Man Blues, Substitute. Let's see, Summertime Blues, Shakin' All Over, and My Generation and Magic Bus. And that was it. That was all the songs on there. But this album, over the years, they managed to restore some of the audio that the tapes originally had problems. They released a larger version with basically all the non-Tommy songs with the addition of Amazing Journey / Sparks. And then eventually they just restored the whole thing, and they have a double disc, which is this one, which is, it has all the non-Tommy stuff on one disc and Tommy on the other disc. Now, the way that The Who would perform the concert is they would play the songs up through A Quick One While He's Away, which was kind of like the prequel song to Tommy anyway. Then they'd play Tommy in its entirety, and then they'd finish it off with a few extra songs. And that would be pretty much the typical Who set, which would end up being a pretty long set. They would chalk in a good 2.5 hours on an average night. And The Who, in terms of being a live band, are just, fantastic. You got world-class musicians, and they play really well off of one another. They really listen to each other well. You got John Entwistle, who probably is the best bass player in rock and roll. You got Keith Moon, who's just a wild and crazy drummer. You got Pete Townsend, who, while isn't necessarily the most technically proficient guitar player, knows how to play rhythm guitar, knows how to communicate, and basically directs the band. And a lot of the leaping around and the things that you see is actually just very physical cues. When Pete's jumping, a lot of times he's telling the other musicians that that's a point of emphasis note. And if you notice, when Pete turns towards the rest of the band and they watch him as he jumps up and down and they play off of what he does. Now, Pete actually said about John Entwistle that he couldn't play anything that John couldn't follow, which is really high praise. And he said that John could definitely play things that he couldn't follow. So, but this is just a fantastic live album. It was recorded on February 14th, that's right, Valentine's Day in 1970. Now, The Who had always planned to release a live album. As a matter of fact, they recorded shows throughout a North American tour in the U.S., and supposedly the story is that Bob Pryden recorded them, listened to all of those concerts, and Pete went to him and said, well, which ones do you think are the good ones? And what he wanted to do was he wanted to pick and choose what songs were the best songs and put together a live album based off of what were the best tracks from all shows. Supposedly Bob Pryden just said, oh, they're all good, Pete. And Pete, in a fit of frustration, just burned all the tapes and destroyed them all, supposedly. This is, a mythology. Whether or not it's really true, I'm not sure, but it's a fun story. So, anyway, regardless of that, they finally decided to record 2 shows. They recorded one at Hull and they recorded one at Leeds. And they had problems with the tapes at both shows, but they had enough good recordings with the Leeds that they managed to get the show. Eventually, they did manage to fix the tapes with modern technology and get the whole show as well. So there is a whole show that is also out there, but honestly, it's very similar to Live at Leeds, and I'm familiar with Live at Leeds, so to me it's just kind of like more of the same thing, because it's 2 shows from the same tour, and they basically played the songs in a very similar fashion. Now, Live at Leeds has some really great tracks, and we're going to talk about a few of those. There's the John Entwistle written song called Heaven and Hell that starts off the night. And I'm always kind of surprised that The Who never recorded Heaven and Hell, but they never did. John Entwistle recorded a solo version for his first album, but it never showed up on a Who album anywhere. Young Man Blues, which is a cover of a Mose Ellison song, which is if Young Man Blues doesn't get you going, I don't know what does. To me, it's there's just so much energy there, and it's just so fiery, and it's everything that's good about The Who. It's that raw, defiant energy that's angry, but still kind of like, we're gonna fight, we're not gonna give up, we're gonna keep going. Kind of like the kind of thing that you would give a speech before a battle or something, you know what I mean? It's that kind of energy. A quick one, While He's Away, is an instrumental that they released out of their second album, and it's the studio track. Actually, I don't really care for that much, but the live version is really awesome. It's really strange. The Who is one of the few bands where there are live versions of songs that are quite a bit better than the studio versions. Young Man Blues is another example. The Who tried to record Young Man Blues in the studio, but it just doesn't hold a candle to this live version that's on this album. Summertime Blues is another really great cover of Summertime Blues. This is one of my personal favorites. Some people say the Blue Cheer cover's better, but I like this cover better. Shaking All Over is another great cover song that they do on this album. Shaking All Over is a cover of a song by a band called Johnny Kidd and the Pirates. And they're actually very influential, not only on The Who, but a lot of the other bands. They were one of the first bands to have the four-person lineup with the guitar player, singer, bass player, and drummer. At the time, most people had a rhythm guitar player and a lead guitar player. And Johnny Kidd and the Pirates was one of the first bands that didn't follow that. They also had kind of a shtick because they all dressed in, pirate gear and stuff like that. But Shaking All Over has been covered by a lot of artists. Once again, for instance, Iggy Pop covered it. I mean, it's just a really long song. Then there's the epic My Generation, which is a huge medley of all kinds of different songs, including songs that were for the Lifehouse project that never got fully developed. But it's just a masterwork. It goes back into bits of Tommy. It goes into some new Lifehouse songs. It's this powerhouse of rhythm guitar, and the band is just, Pete Townsend is using the echo in the back of the wall of the building as a stylistic effect. I mean, it's just awesome. And then lastly is another really big epic cover version where they take the studio track to a whole nother level, and that's Magic Bus. And so it's really a great album. Now, the Tommy side of things is, the Tommy performance is solid, but I kind of have a little bit of Tommy fatigue, so there's a lot of different live performances of Tommy, and this one isn't any better or worse than most of them, but it's the non-Tommy songs that are really the strong suit for this album. And when I listen to it, I always listen to I almost always just listen to the disc that has the non-Tommy stuff on it and don't really pay attention to the Tommy stuff. So this album gets my highest possible recommendation. Like I said, I pretty much think it's probably the best live album ever recorded. The Who is right up there with the best live bands ever. I've seen The Who live twice, and I've seen them, recordings of them live many, many times. And even as 70-year-old geezers, they still kick ass and take names later live. They just have so much energy. Without John anymore and without Keith, I mean, they found another really great drummer in Zach Starkey, the son of Ringo Starr. And they use Pino Palladino for bass, and Pino is also a pretty solid bass player. He plays on some Pete solo stuff. If you ever heard the song Give Blood, the bass on Give Blood is Pino Palladino. Alright, so I think this is getting a little bit long, but I can go on and on about this album because I love The Who. I know so much about this band. But I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up for today. Alright, thank you for watching these videos, and have a great one, guys.